Okay, so welcome to our Get SFU-Ready session for new international graduate students. And we would like to first and foremost congratulate you on your acceptance to SFU. We're so pleased that you've chosen SFU as part of your academic journey, and we sincerely hope that your experience here will far exceed your expectations. And for those of you who may be watching the recording at a later date, please do note that the auto caption functionality may not be 100% accurate. So I would like to respectfully acknowledge that Simon Fraser University is located on the unceded traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, Katzie, Coquitlam, Kaikai, Kwantlen, Simamu, and Tuasin nations. So what I've just shared is a land acknowledgement. Some of you may be familiar with the concept of land acknowledgements, while it might be something new for others. We acknowledge the land to honor the indigenous people who have lived here and worked on this land historically and presently, and to insert an awareness of land rights in this settler colonial society. So I'd like to start off by pointing out to a transitional support resource that you can find on our website for new international students, the Welcome Guides. So there is a tailored guide specific to graduate students, along with guides to students from other international pathways. So they all come with a downloadable step-by-step checklist to ensure you're not missing any important steps to prepare for your time at SFU. As a graduate student, the Graduate and Postdoctoral Studies Office, or the GPS as we commonly refer to it, and your academic department will be key points of service during your time at SFU. So the Graduate and Postdoctoral Studies Office is the administrative student services unit for graduate students. You may reach out to them if you have any questions about your academic progress, academic policies, and for information about funding and awards that are available to graduate students through the office. And then if you need any assistance with your academics or course registration, you have to reach out to your relevant academic department, and they will be able to guide you further. If you are thinking of deferring your start term, you will also have to contact your academic department. And please do note that international student advisors at International Services for Students are not qualified to provide you with academic advising. You'll get to hear more about what international student advisors do later on in the presentation. So if you plan on living on campus, or if you have applied for SFU residence and then you have any questions about your residence application or any moving instructions, you will have to contact SFU Residence and Housing. And then if you do plan on living off campus, the SFU Residence website lists some resources, and an organization named Places for Students is SFU's official off-campus housing partner. They list rental properties surrounding the different SFU campuses, and you can find the link on the SFU Residence website. And if you plan on renting a place off campus, I also highly encourage you to attend the Tenants' Rights and Responsibilities information session, which will be taking place on November 30th. It is a virtual session, so you'll be able to join us from anywhere in the world. And you'll learn about a wide range of topics, from the different types of rental agreements in BC to what your rights are as a tenant, to information on grounds for eviction and dispute resolution. If you scan the QR code that's on the slide, it will take you to the registration page, and I highly recommend you all to attend it. The Center for Accessible Learning, or the CAL, so they make every effort to assist students with disabilities so that the students can achieve their educational goals. Their disability access advisors will help students establish accommodations such as classroom and exam modifications. So if you're a student with a suspected or a documented disability, please do get in touch with the CAL and their advisors as soon as possible. You will need to have those accommodations set in place before the term begins. So if this would apply to you, please make sure that you get in touch with as soon as you can. If you have any questions about scholarships, bursaries, and other financial supports that are available to international students, please get in touch with Financial Aid and Awards as they administer all financial aid. And career and volunteer services, they offer a variety of services for students related to work search and career development, such as one-on-one advising, group programs, workshops, as well as job fairs. They have a whole team of career professionals to support your journey at SFU, and there's also a dedicated career specialist just for international students. And the career professionals can help you with all the topics that you see on this, the slide here related to your career search and answer any questions that you may have. And we can now pivot to medical insurance. And for this portion, you will also hear from Ricky from Health and Counseling Services and Ali from Student Care. So to focus on medical insurance, it's comprised of two main types called primary and secondary medical insurance. So as international students, you must have adequate medical insurance for the entire duration of your studies. If family members are accompanying you, they should also have adequate medical insurance during their stay in Canada. So medical services can be extremely costly without valid insurance. If you visit the BCMSP website, they quote that a hospital cost alone can exceed $1,000 a day. As such, it's in your best interest, as well as it's your responsibility to ensure that you have valid health coverage at all times. And Ricky will explain the difference between primary and secondary medical insurance.
Thank you. So what's the difference between primary and secondary insurance? Well, primary medical insurance covers medically required services such as visits to doctors, hospital stays, and medical testing such as x-rays. Primary medical insurance is legally required for all residents of British Columbia, including international students, and it is provided through the BC Medical Services Plan, also known as MSP. BC MSP is administered by a government entity known as Health Insurance BC. Secondary medical insurance generally covers extras that are not covered by primary medical insurance, such as dental services, vision care, and prescription medication. Eligible graduate students will receive their secondary medical insurance through the GSS Health and Dental Plan. Next slide, please. Now, focusing on primary medical insurance, this diagram shows a general timeline for primary medical insurance for students who are newly arriving in BC. New students who arrive in BC should apply for BC MSP right away. There is a waiting period of roughly 3 months before your MSP coverage will be in effect. To cover this waiting period, SFU provides a temporary primary medical insurance plan called GuardMe. For students who are starting in the spring 2023 semester, your temporary primary insurance coverage through GuardMe will start on January 1st of 2023, and then on April 30th of 2023. You will be automatically enrolled in the GuardMe after course enrollment. Depending on when you arrive in BC, your BC MSP coverage start date will be different. If you apply for BC MSP right away after arriving in BC in early January, it will be effective towards the end of your semester, and you may have overlap period of BC MSP and GuardMe coverages. We'll go into this a little bit more detail about GuardMe and MSP in the next few slides. Next slide.
Yeah, thanks, Ricky. So as Ricky mentioned, your GuardMe at SFU plan is a temporary primary medical coverage. And the goal of the GuardMe plan is to ensure that you have coverage while you're waiting for your BC MSP to be effective and for you to have access to immediate medical services should you need it. So as international students at SFU, you are automatically enrolled in the GuardMe at SFU plan only for your first term. We will not be able to enroll you in any subsequent terms. And the cost of the plan is $281 for the term, and it will be posted to your student account as part of your student fees. And if you have any dependent family members, you can also enroll them in your GuardMe plan at an additional cost at the beginning of the term. And as we mentioned earlier, your GuardMe coverage will be valid from January 1st to April 30th of next year. If you arrive in BC earlier than January 1st, you can apply for early arrivals insurance through the GuardMe website on your own. And at the beginning of the term, you will also receive a welcome email from GuardMe directly. And this email will include a link to log into your account to view your policy details and to submit any claims. You can also view and download your healthcare access card and this will be your proof of insurance. It'll have your name, your student number, policy number, and policy start and end dates. So this card can be used for direct billing at medical clinics that do direct billing, or you can use it to submit a claim later on. So make sure that you have it as a future reference. So if you will not be physically in Canada and you'll be studying remotely during the spring 2023 term, you can opt out of the GuardMe plan by January 30th. And to do so, you have to complete the out-of-country opt-out form online. If this applies to you, you must ensure that you have adequate medical insurance coverage when you eventually join us at SFU by arriving in BC. And please do get in touch with us if you'll be in this situation. It's also possible that you already have valid BC MSP if you have been living in BC for a while. And if this is your case, you can also opt out of the GuardMe plan online by January 30th for a full refund of the $281. And for those of you who will be brand new BC residents, you might be eligible for a partial refund if you receive your BC MSP card and opt out before March 30th. And to be eligible for all refunds, you must have not used your GuardMe insurance plan. So that gives you an overview of the GuardMe plan. And what's key to remember about GuardMe is that it's temporary and it's for your first term only. You need to make sure that you will have valid BC MSP by the time the GuardMe plan expires in April, so you will have continuous primary medical insurance coverage. And Ricky will explain give a little bit more information about BC MSP.
Yes, so the BC MSP is provincial medical primary insurance, and all students staying in BC for 6 months or longer are legally required to enroll under the Medicare Protection Act. So unlike GuardMe at SFU, it is not an automatic enrollment process and cannot be done through SFU. If you are physically in BC and haven't applied for MSP already, please apply right away online or apply as soon as you arrive in BC. All new BC residents must fulfill the wait period of roughly 3 months before their BC MSP coverage will be effective. For example, if you arrive in early January, the waiting period will be the balance of the days left in January, plus 2 more months, which would be February and March, which will result in your BC MSP being effective from April 1st onwards. The GuardMe plan will provide you primary medical insurance while you're going through this waiting period. To apply for BC MSP, your current study permit must be valid for a period of 6 months or more. If you have any dependents, they can be added to your plan when you apply. The cost for BC MSP is $75 per month for all study permit holders, and this is known as the International Student Health Fee. You will receive the invoice monthly by mail, and you can make payments online. This charge does not appear on your SFU student account, and you're responsible for making the monthly payments and maintaining your account. Next slide, please. So this information may not apply to everyone, but we wanted to touch upon this and give you the resources. If you end up becoming a teaching assistant or a tutor marker, you can have the International Student Health Fee covered by SFU as part of your employee benefits for the duration of your TSSU contract. The TSSU benefits are not automatic, and you will need to apply for it through SFU Human Resources. What's important to remember is that you will have this fee covered only for the duration of your contract. Once it comes to an end, you will be responsible for making the monthly payments and maintaining your MSP account again. For further questions about enrolling in the group plan, you can email tssusvens@sfu.ca. Next slide, please. Once you receive MSP coverage, please ensure that you keep your MSP account updated. As an international student, your MSP coverage will be valid only until the length of the study permit you apply for BC MSP with. Each time you renew your study permit, you must also ensure to renew your MSP coverage. In the future, if you find yourself in this scenario, please remember that you can apply for temporary MSP coverage if your current study permit had expired and you are still waiting for the new study permit to be processed and issued. You can request for temporary MSP coverage for an initial period of 6 months if you apply for a new study permit before your old study permit expires. Then, once you receive your new study permit, you can apply to extend your MSP coverage for the entire validity of your new study permit. Managing your MSP account also entails updating your address if you move so you don't miss any important correspondence and ensuring that you are making your monthly payments. You can do all of this online by visiting the MSP website. Next slide.
Yeah, so before we move on to secondary medical insurance, the key takeaways we want to also note regarding primary medical insurance is that your GuardMe plan is temporary, so it's mandatory that you apply for BC MSP as soon as you arrive in BC. And each time your status in Canada changes, for example, if you renew your study permit or you obtain a post-graduation work permit, please remember to extend your MSP coverage each time too. And if you already have valid MSP, you may opt out of GuardMe by the due deadlines for a full or partial refund. And Ali will now describe more about secondary medical insurance.
Thank you so much, Ishani. Moving on to secondary medical insurance, this service is provided to you by your Graduate Student Society and is administered by Student Care. My colleagues Ricky and Ishani have already highlighted to you the difference between your MSP and your secondary medical plan. Just to kind of summarize that, your secondary medical insurance will cover you for all things that are not covered by your primary medical insurance / MSP. So things such as dental coverage, vision coverage are all benefits that would be provided to you by your graduate benefit plan. And as international students, just a reminder, you are required to enroll into BC MSP as well. Next slide, please. So this is kind of a quick glance at what benefits you have access to under your graduate student plan. You have a health plan that covers you for things such as prescription drugs, any vaccinations. If you need to see a mental health practitioner, those benefits are covered as well. And then you have other paramedical practitioners such as physio, chiro, massage, and so forth. You will find a full breakdown of this on our website, which I will link to you at a later part of this presentation. You also have a dental plan that covers you for up to $700 per year for preventative services, diagnostic services, root canals, periodontic, endodontic services as well. And a breakdown of this is also available on our website. A vision plan will cover you for eye exams, eyeglasses, and contact lenses. And you also have a travel plan in case you happen to be traveling outside of Canada for academic or non-academic trips. When it comes to academic trips, you'll be covered for the entire duration of that trip. And non-academic trips will be covered at up to 120 days per trip. There are no limits on how many trips you can take in a given year. Since all of you here are international students, I should highlight that the travel insurance will not apply to you in your home country. The assumption behind this by the insurance company is that everyone has insurance provided to them by their home country, similar to how that works here in Canada. Next slide, please. And so the plan, the fee for your secondary medical plan is $310 for 8 months. So since you folks are starting your term in January, you will be covered up until August of 2023. And then you will be automatically reassessed this fee in September next year for the following 12 months. This fee has been automatically billed to your tuition fee account, and you will see a breakdown of this line item by health plan and dental plan as you see on the screen over here in your tuition fee invoice. So if you want to double check that you have been assessed this fee in your invoice, once you see this line item billed there, you can rest assured that you are covered under the plan. By any chance, if you are not covered under this plan and you would like to opt in, you will have an opportunity to do that in early January. I will highlight those dates for you as well. There's also an opportunity for you to enroll your family members into the plan in case you would like to do that. That process is done manually and it is not done automatically. So once again, in early January, you will be able to enroll either one dependent for an additional $317 or unlimited dependents for an additional $634. Next slide, please. So like I mentioned earlier, your coverage will begin on January 1st and will go on until August 31st of 2023. If you continue to be a student starting September 1st, you will be automatically reassessed for 12 months. So September 1st until August 31st of 2024. Next slide, please. So this is sort of the change of coverage period that is important for you to take note of. That is between January 3rd until January 20th of 2023. The change of coverage period allows you to do a few things. One, if you would like to opt out of the plan, you will be able to do that online at studentcare.ca. As long as you have an equivalent or alternative secondary medical insurance coverage. So whether you are covered by your parent, your spouse, your employer, or any other private plan, as long as it is an equivalent coverage, you will be we will accept that as an opt-out, and you will receive your full refund in your tuition fee account. Please note that BC MSP or GuardMe are not considered as equivalent coverage because that is your primary medical insurance. The change of coverage period also allows you to enroll your family members into the plan if you would like to do that. It is important that you do that between January 3rd and January 20th. If you want to coordinate your benefits, so let's say you already have coverage through your employer, spouse, or parent, and you would like to combine that with your student plan, you will also be able to do that during the change of coverage period. So January 3rd to January 20th, please take note of these dates. And in case you want to make any adjustments or changes to your plan, this is the time to do that. Next slide, please. So there are a few ways in which you can claim any benefits that you have access to. The first and the easiest one is the Pay Direct card. You will be able to find a digital copy of this card online on the website, or you can pick up a print copy from our office in the Student Union building. The Pay Direct card basically makes the whole process, the claiming process, a lot easier because the provider will use the Pay Direct card to bill the insurance company directly for the insured portion of the plan, so that you don't have to worry about submitting any claims or doing any paperwork after your procedure. So I encourage students to always explore this option first. In certain instances where the Pay Direct feature does not work, let's say the practice is a newer practice or doesn't have that infrastructure set up, there is no reason to worry. You can simply make that payment upfront, hold on to your receipt, and then you can submit your claim online using the PBC mobile app. And so you will just have to create a member profile online using your credentials, take a picture of your receipt, upload it into the system, sign up for either direct deposit or a check, whichever method you prefer, and you will receive your refund within a few business days. And then the most traditional way of submitting claims is an online form. You'll be able to download these forms from our website and then send it to the insurance company by mail. And if you prefer to go that route, we also have agents in our office in the Student Union building who will be able to mail it for you. So if you prefer to do that, feel free to drop by at our office. Next slide, please. The blackout period is also an important time period to keep in mind. That usually happens between January 1st to February 28th. Considering that all of you are new students joining SFU for the first time, this is the period that SFU takes to transfer your information and your details to the insurance company, and the insurance company would then have to upload that into their database. So if you are trying to access your Pay Direct card, create your member profile on the PBC mobile app, or just verify your coverage, you will not be able to do those few things during the blackout period simply because the database does not have you in the system yet. So after February 28th, your name and your details will be uploaded into the system, and you will be able to submit your claims as usual and create your member profile on the app. This does not mean that you don't have access to your benefits. Your benefits, like I mentioned earlier, are active as of January 1st. So you can go ahead and get your procedures done from a dental clinic or any practitioner that is covered under your plan. You will have access to your benefits. the only thing you need to keep in mind is that you need to hold on to your receipts and then submit them for a claim after February 28th. This blackout period is usually something that students experience only once at the beginning of their term at SFU. This is not something that you would experience the following year because your name would already be in the system. So this is just kind of a one-time thing that you would experience as a new student at SFU. Next slide, please. Another thing to keep in mind is registering for the BC Fair Pharmacare. Since you folks will be registering for BC MSP as well, you will be able to register for BC Fair Pharmacare through the same portal. All of you are required to register for BC Fair Pharmacare if you have MSP or if you are registering for MSP. If you do not have MSP or you are waiting for your MSP coverage to kick in and you would like to claim some prescription drugs, feel free to contact us online and we will be able to make sure that your prescription drug claims are not restricted. Otherwise, if you have BC MSP and you are not registered for the Fair Pharmacare program, the insurance company will stop paying your prescription drugs at $750. And then beyond that, you would have to basically register for Fair Pharmacare to continue accessing your prescription drug benefits. So if this is something that, if it applies to you and you are a heavy user of prescription drugs, I really encourage you to apply for BC Fair Pharmacare. In fact, I encourage you to apply for BC Fair Pharmacare regardless, simply because you never know when you would need to access these benefits and you don't want to experience any hurdles along the way. Next slide, please. The last thing I want to talk about is student care networks. A student care network is basically a group of practitioners and professionals who have partnered with us to provide students with savings and discounts when you are going to their practice to access services. So in the next slide, I will sort of give you a glance of how this works in practice. So this is an example of the dental network. As you can see on the screen over here, you are covered at 80%. Your insurance plan covers you at 80% for preventative services and basic services, including extractions. If you go to a dental network, a practitioner who is part of the dental network, you will get an additional 20% discount when you go to them. And so that means that at the end of the day, you would be paying 0% out of pocket. The neat thing is that even if that service is not covered by your plan, let's say a major restorative service, the dentist's office will still give you that 20% discount and bringing down the total level or amount you have to pay out of pocket when you're accessing those services. We also have networks for pharmacy, psychology, chiro, and vision. So I encourage you to explore these on our website and prepare in advance whenever you do need to access these services, so you know exactly where to go and how much you can expect to spend out of pocket to access these services. Next slide, please. And so that's the end of the secondary medical insurance portion. Like I mentioned earlier, we have an office in the Student Union building. We are located in room 2301, and I encourage you to go to our website to kind of just familiarize yourself with what your plan covers you for. In case you have any questions after this presentation today, you will be able to access our assistance center online and once again visit our office, and our agents will be able to help you out there. And with that, I will pass it on to Ricky.
Thank you, Ali. So I would like to provide a quick overview of our services here at SFU Health and Counseling. We have a team of doctors, psychologists, mental health nurses that are available to help you during your studies here. Please note that we're currently seeing students in multiple methods, including video, telephone, and in-person appointments. If you need to see one of our providers, please call the numbers listed on the slide to make your appointment right away. Next slide, please. So a little bit about myself. As the transition case manager here at Health and Counseling, I support students from international pathways and their transition into SFU. So transition can mean many things. It's different for each person. Some of the topics I support students with include mental health, culture shock, finances, understanding different systems, the labor market information, and much more. Feel free to connect with me. I'm happy to provide you with any type of support you may need during your studies. Next slide. Here at Health and Counseling, we offer a variety of programs to support you during your studies. We have group programming that you can participate in now, and also self-guided resources you can utilize anytime. The best thing is that this is all free, so please check it out on our website for more information. Next slide, please. We also have the My SSP program. This is a free mental health program available to any SFU student. You can access it even if you are not in Canada. The program is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can call the number listed on this slide, or you can download the app from the Google Play Store or Apple Store and start accessing the services immediately. Thanks for listening to me. I'll turn it back to Shani.
Yeah, thanks so much, Ricky and Ellie. And this brings us to the end of part 1, and we will begin our first Q&A session. As such, I will end the recording, and Mivaka will be able to give you a little bit more information about how the Q&A would work. Thank you. Okay. So welcome back to part 2 of the Get SFU-Ready session for new international students. Aska will now present on immigration requirements. Over to you, Aska.
Thank you so much, Shani. Good morning and good afternoon and good evening, everyone. My name is Asuka Nakamura, and I'm one of the International Student Advisors, Immigration Specialists here at SFU. As a former international student myself, I'm very honored to be here today to virtually meet with you all. I would like to welcome you all to our SFU community, as well as to our international student community, and we're looking forward to meeting you all in person next year. Next slide, please. As an international student advisor, we are part of the International Services for Students Office, or ISS office at SFU. At ISS, we offer non-academic
Sorry, Aska. Sorry, I think you. I think the sound went off a bit. Could you try speaking again?
Yeah.
Yes, we couldn't hear you for a couple of minutes. Yes.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. No worries.
Okay.
Yeah. As international student advisors, we are part of the International Services for Students Office, or ISS office at SFU. At ISS, we offer non-academic advising and services to help support your transition to SFU as an international student. And on this slide, you can see a list of services that we offer. When I say non-academic advising, it is any advising or information about your temporary resident status or documents as an international student in Canada. Our team of immigration specialists are licensed to provide advice on your study permit, visa, on and off-campus work regulations, for example. In addition, our team offers advice on medical insurance and the Canadian healthcare system, which you just learned about from the previous presentation. We also provide transition support and intercultural programs, and our office includes our study abroad team who coordinate international exchanges and field schools. Next slide, please. If you're looking to connect with an international student advisor, you can reach us in a number of ways. We offer advising using in-person and virtual methods, including email, phone, live chat, which is online messaging system, and drop-in or booked appointments, which we conduct via Zoom or in person, depending on your preference. We offer different communication methods because we understand that different students may have different comfort levels with accessing in-person services. And I want you to know that we are here for you, and we want to make sure that you feel safe and comfortable when accessing our advising services. We will continue to offer both virtual and in-person services so that you have options and you can choose what works best for you. Our website is also a great resource and a place where you can find answers to many common questions. We have a number of instruction guides and resources for study permits, work permits, visas, medical insurance, enrollment requirements, and lots more. I included a barcode there, which you can scan with your phone and access our advising services page. Like Shani mentioned, I would also encourage you to review our welcome guides for new international students on our website. It's a great way to understand the different steps you should take to get ready for your time at SFU. If you have any questions and need help, but you're not sure where to go or who to ask, please consider the ISS office your home away home, and we can help you to refer you to the appropriate SFU office if your questions are beyond our scope of work at the university. So that's us, and that's what we do. Now we move on to the immigration section of this presentation. I would like to draw your attention to the disclaimer on each of my slides. Thank you. As we slowly transition out of the COVID-19 pandemic, immigration policy still continues to change rapidly and without notice. So I'd like to remind you all that the information that we are sharing today is current as of today, November 22nd, 2022. Thanks, Shani. If you can go back to the previous page. So these are the topics that I will touch on in my presentation. If you have any questions during the presentation, please hold on to your questions until our Q&A period. And some of you included your questions in the registration for this session, so I will do my best to answer those questions during that presentation. Next slide, please. So I would like to start off by sharing some important concepts before we dive into the immigration content of our session. First of all, I would like to point out the difference between a visa and a permit. Although these two terms are often used interchangeably, a visa is a travel document, and a permit, like a study permit, is a status document. The document you see on the left side is a temporary resident visa, or TRV. A TRV is also referred to as a visitor visa and is a travel document that is placed in your passport to show that you have met the requirements for admission to Canada as a temporary resident. A TRV is issued to those who are citizens of a visa-required country. For those who are citizens of a visa-exempt countries, an electronic travel authorization, or ETA, might be required for you to enter Canada. TRV and ETA do not give you legal status in Canada. They are travel documents or travel authorizations. These are automatically issued to you if you applied for your study permit from outside Canada and have been approved. On the other hand, your study permit gives you temporary immigration status in Canada as an international student. It allows you to study and remain in Canada for a specific period of time. If applied for a study permit from outside Canada and you have received a letter that confirms the approval of your study permit, then you will receive your study permit upon entering Canada after an examination with a border services officer. Next slide, please. A study permit is required if you are pursuing a course or program of study at SFU that is longer than 6 months. You must be holding a valid study permit for all in-Canada components of your program. For you to remain in Canada as an international student and maintain your student status, it is important that your study permit remains valid at all times. This means that you may need to extend your study permit if it will expire before you complete your program. It is important to know that study permit extension applications can only be submitted from inside Canada. And you're authorized to stay in Canada only until the expiry date of your study permit or until 90 days after the completion of your studies, whichever comes first. If you are outside Canada and holding a study permit that has expired or will expire before you return, you must follow the process for a new initial study permit application and wait for approval before traveling back to Canada. The current estimated processing time for a study permit application made outside Canada is 12 weeks, and the processing time for a study permit extension application made inside Canada is 74 days as of today. You can find the most current estimated processing time on the IRCC's website. So I'd like you to remember that as of today, IRCC, or Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada, they recommend that students apply for a study permit extension 6 months before their study permit expires. Even though the current processing time listed on the IRCC's website is about 2.5 months, unfortunately, this is not always the case, and it's not always accurate, as they are still dealing with a large volume of backlogged applications. Because of the IRCC's processing delays, some of you might be wondering what your options are if you do not receive your study permit approval in time to come to Canada for the spring 2023 term. If you are in that situation, you may defer your studies to the next available intake of your program. Please contact your department about the deferral option in case you cannot travel to Canada to begin your program in person. You might also want to discuss potential accommodations or academic concessions that may be made in the event of a late arrival. Another option might be for you to start your studies remotely, if this is something that your department is able to accommodate. And again, please confirm with your department about remote course offerings available for the spring term. And please note that, however, a study permit approval is not guaranteed, even if you've started your program remotely. So it is important for you to keep that in mind if you plan to begin studying online from outside Canada. And unfortunately, there are no measures in place for a study permit applicant to request expedited processing of their application. And in addition, as a post-secondary institution, SFU does not have the authority to intervene with IRCC on behalf of a student to request faster processing of an application. So if you'd like to discuss the immigration-related considerations, please feel free to reach out to us so we can discuss your options. The next slide, please. And we will now move on to the topic of transfer students. For those of you who are already holding a valid study permit and transferring to SFU from another post-secondary institution in Canada, you don't need to obtain a new study permit if your current study permit is still valid. If you are in Canada and your study permit will expire soon, you will need to extend it before it expires while you're inside Canada. And if you're outside Canada and your study permit will expire before you return to Canada, then you may apply for a study permit from outside Canada. If you applied for a study permit based on the acceptance to an institution that is not SFU, you will need to submit updated documents, such as an SFU letter of acceptance, to IRCC before your application is approved. You can submit additional documents through the IRCC's web form. And if your study permit application has already been approved outside Canada and you did not include documents from SFU in your application, you will need to submit a study permit application and wait for approval before you get to travel to Canada. In addition to maintaining your study permit, all students transferring to SFU from another Canadian post-secondary institution are required to notify IRCC that they have transferred to SFU by completing a DLI transfer process or designated learning institution transfer process online. Next slide, please. And let's talk briefly about the study permit conditions. As a study permit holder, you are expected to comply with your study permit conditions by actively pursuing your studies in Canada and making reasonable progress towards completion of your program of study. From IRCC's perspective, this means that you must remain enrolled in each academic session during your studies in Canada. Next slide, please. Your study permit will also allow you to legally work on and off campus, providing that you meet IRCC's eligibility criteria. To work on campus, you must be enrolled full-time at SFU in the term you wish to work. You can find our full-time definition for immigration purposes on our enrollment requirements website. In addition to full-time study, you must also hold a valid study permit and a permit that includes a condition printed on the document stating that you may work or may accept employment. As per IRCC's definition, on campus means that you can work at all buildings within the boundaries of the SFU campus. An on-campus employer may include the university and a private business that provides on-campus services to the school. You can review the full definition of what constitutes on-campus work on the IRCC's website. Next slide, please. To work off campus, in addition to being enrolled full-time and holding a valid study permit with work conditions, you must also be enrolled in a program at SFU that is at least 6 months in length and leads to a degree, diploma, or certificate. Study permit holders who meet the requirements to work off campus are normally restricted to up to 20 hours per week of off-campus work, unless it is a regularly scheduled break. During regularly scheduled breaks, you may work on a full-time basis if you meet the eligibility criteria. And IRCC recently introduced a temporary measure which allows eligible international students to work more than 20 hours per week from November 15th, 2022 to December 31st, 2023. You might benefit from this temporary measure if your application for an initial study permit or a study permit extension was received by IRCC on or before October 7th, 2022. And each student's eligibility under this measure may differ based on their circumstances, including when IRCC received their study permit or study permit extension application. And whether you meet the requirements to work more than 20 hours off work depends on your eligibility and circumstances. So please review the information on the IRCC's website very carefully and reach out to us if you have any questions about your particular case. Next slide, please. Returning to the concept of regularly scheduled breaks, examples of regularly scheduled breaks for SFU graduate students include the academic break, breaks between full-time terms, and the reading break. An academic break or scheduled break can be taken when no courses are offered for a graduate student's program within a particular term, or there is a scheduled break within a program. To be eligible to work full-time during a regularly scheduled break, you must be enrolled full-time at SFU in the term directly before and after that term, and you must meet the requirements to work on or off campus. If you're already holding a valid study permit, but it does not have conditions that allow you to work, you can apply to change the conditions of your study permit to have the work eligibility remarks added. If you are applying from inside Canada, the process to change conditions is the same as the process for a study permit extension. You will also require a valid social insurance number, which is also known as a SIN, for any work you do in Canada. This number is used for tax purposes and it's required in order for you to receive income. In order to apply for a SIN, you will need either a work permit or a study permit with conditions stating that you may work or may accept employment. Once you apply for your SIN, you may begin working at an insured employment before you receive your SIN. Since your SIN expires on the date provided on your study permit or work permit, when your linked permit expires, you will need to submit your new permit to update the expiry date of your SIN. Next slide, please. And on that note, I wanted to mention the SIN clinic taking place at the SFU Burnaby campus on Friday, January 6th. We will have Service Canada officers on campus who can assist you with applying for your SIN. You will have to book an appointment, and you can do so by scanning the QR code, which will take you to the registration page. Please ensure that you will have the required original documents with you when you arrive. Next slide, please. And if you're accepted into an SFU co-op program, or if your program has a mandatory co-op, internship, or practicum requirement, you can apply for a co-op work permit to do your required co-op work terms. If your SFU letter of acceptance confirms that there is a work or internship requirement in your program, you can request a co-op work permit when you apply for your initial study permit from outside Canada. Otherwise, you can also apply for a co-op work permit after you arrive in Canada. Whether you apply in Canada or outside Canada, you will require documentation from SFU confirming that there is a co-op, internship, or practicum requirements in your study program. Next slide, please. Full-time international students may be eligible to apply for a post-graduation work permit, or PGWP, upon completing their program of study in Canada. The PGWP is an open work permit of up to 3 years in length, and you don't need a job offer or work experience to apply. In order to apply for a PGWP program, you are required to meet a set of eligibility criteria, which include maintaining full-time student status during each academic term of their studies. Possible exceptions to this full-time requirement may be made by IRCC in your final term of study or during a period of authorized leave from study. For graduate students, full-time enrollment during all academic terms, so all spring, summer, and fall terms, is required as these are all considered formal academic terms for immigration purposes for our graduate students. If receiving a post-graduation work permit after your studies is a priority for you, please ensure you maintain full-time enrollment in these terms starting right from day one of your program, as we do see work permit refusals in cases where students did not meet the full-time requirement. If you find yourself in a situation where you need to study part-time or take a term off, please book an appointment with an international student advisor to discuss immigration-related considerations. And as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, IRCC introduced temporary measures to allow international students to complete all or part of their studies online from outside Canada without losing their eligibility for PGWP. These measures were updated on August 25th, 2022, with a reduction in scope. For those of you who will start your program in spring 2023 or summer 2023, you are required to complete at least 50% of your program of study in Canada. Up until August 31st, 2023, the time you spent studying outside of Canada will be counted toward the overall length of the PGWP if it constitutes less than 50% of the program. Next slide, please. And now we will shift gears and speak to the entry requirements for Canada and what to keep in mind when traveling. Traveling looks very different now, given that we were experiencing globally due to the pandemic. With regard to entry to Canada, as of October 1st, 2022, all COVID-19 border requirements, including vaccination, mandatory use of ArriveCAN, and testing, quarantine, or isolation requirements were removed for anyone entering Canada. Use of ArriveCAN is now optional, and if you are flying into Toronto, Vancouver, Winnipeg, Halifax, or Montreal international airports, you can still use ArriveCAN to complete your advanced CBSA declaration to save time upon arrival. Transport Canada has also removed existing travel requirements as of October 1st. All travelers are encouraged to wear masks during all travel and to avoid travel if they have symptoms of COVID-19. If you will be transiting through another country on your way to Canada, please ensure you are informed about the entry requirements and prior to your travel, as there might still be border measures in place. When traveling, make sure you're carrying your passport, travel document, and your study permit or study permit approval, temporary resident visa, or ETA if required. We also recommend that you carry your SFU letter of acceptance, and sometimes referred to an offer letter or admission letter, and an SFU confirmation of enrollment letter or COE letter, which you can download on your GoSFU account. You can also review the documents you should carry when traveling to Canada as an international student on the IRCC website. If your study permit application was approved from outside Canada, your study permit will be issued to you at the port of entry after an examination with the Canada Border Services Agency. Next slide, please. For those of you who are interested in learning more about the updates on the immigration medical exam requirements and the temporary lift of the limit on off-campus work hours, we have another virtual session that is coming up on December 1st, 2023. This session will also be recorded, so please feel free to watch the video if you're interested but not able to attend that session. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is the end of my presentation. Thank you so much, everyone, for your attention and being here with us. And as always, if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to reach out to us, and we will do our best to help you. We will be ending the recording now to move into the Q&A portion of our session. Thanks, Ashani.